Woo! We are live. Hey, everyone. Welcome to a special Basement Radio Arcade podcast. We want to warm up all the gamers for our good friends, the Iron Lords podcast. They're going to go live at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Big shout out to those guys. Definitely want to check out their show.
Facts.
Yes, definitely want to check out the show. You know what? I missed the Final Fantasy VII. Well, obviously for obvious reasons, the spoiler cast, but I'm sure it was good. But we have a great special here, Brad, for you guys. We're bringing back our good friend Optimus Code. Code, what's going on, man?
Man, what's happening? What's going on? Just trying to survive during the pandemic like everybody else.
I know we're all Joels here. You know, I tell you what, and not to get to talk about the pandemic. The one interesting thing that is happening, I think, with this pandemic, outside of people getting sick, is that I think it's really highlighting, I think, Code, a lot of the shortcomings that this country has in terms of the haves and the have-nots.
I got no comment on that. That is 100% true. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah, and I think that, and I hope this is an opportunity for us as a country to reflect on that, because I think that it would be a waste of a moment per se if we didn't acknowledge these shortcomings and finally address these things. We are the wealthiest country in the history of mankind in the world right now. Some of the things that I'm seeing, we shouldn't be seeing, and I'll leave it at that.
Well, yeah, because I said I wasn't gonna say nothing, but the issue is that what I have noticed throughout my career is when you get in a room with a bunch of smart people, there's pretty much not any problem that they can't solve. The problem is usually that they don't want to solve the problem, or it's not a problem that they're interested in, or they are prioritizing other things. And so if you are a person who believes a certain way, you will think that I have worked hard these past X number of years and I've built up a certain amount of savings and I've been successful, and we're going through hard times. And if I have built up enough savings to sustain myself, then I should be rewarded. And if you didn't, you should be punished. And this is what you get because you should have been working when you was playing. And I can never get that person to understand that for some reason they think everyone else is playing but them, and they think other people didn't want to work. They do not understand that these other people that they're criticizing never had the opportunity to do the things that they did. And that if they had been given that same opportunity, they would have also worked themselves up. And so they are not good at trading places like that Eddie Murphy movie. They're not good at putting me in your role, put you in my role, and then see how things turn out. They only ever look at what they have been blessed with, and they think that they have earned it somehow.
You know what's funny is that I have this conversation. My parents, I'm first generation here. My parents are immigrants to this country. I have this conversation.
Where from?
Yeah, what's that?
Where from?
They're from South America, from Colombia and Ecuador.
Oh, okay, awesome.
So I, you know, they're very, very successful. My parents, you know, but they don't. I had this conversation with them. I worked hard, right? That same thing, right? But they don't understand that everyone's situation is different, right?
It is,
and it's hard for them to understand that. And I because I went to college, and not because I went to college, I know better than anyone, but I went to school, and I think school allowed me to kind of broaden my horizons a little bit more, meet new people, interact with people I've never met, think outside my own reality, right?
Yes, it does. Absolutely.
And challenge. I always tell people it's okay to challenge your beliefs, because sometimes what you believe may not be maybe accurate or the full picture.
Absolutely.
Or correct.
It needs to be challenged.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
And that's how you grow. You challenge yourself. You challenge your thoughts, you know, and you grow. I believe that growth never ends throughout your life. Like, I think there's people that stop growing. You always need to grow. You always need to improve yourself, because when you stop growing, you get stuck. You know,
man, every few years I rebuild myself again And a lot of times the new version of me still has a lot of the old stuff because at this point, like I've realized just what things are true and what aren't. But some of
Mm-hmm.
the stuff, like I reevaluate, I'm like, okay, while that was good then, that no longer applies now. So I have to adjust my worldview based on like current things. And there's a saying that goes, nothing suffers from examination except an error. So as long as you legit, you can reevaluate, challenge your beliefs all the time, and they will come out the same every time because they legit. If they wrong, then it's good that you challenged it because now you see a flaw in your worldview.
Exactly. That's well said, Code. Well said. But we this isn't the philosophy brap episode, but no, but well said, man. Seriously, well said. I'm glad that you shared that because I think it's important to share that. Especially what's going on right now in the world. I think
Yeah,
this is a great opportunity for people to self reflect. You know, um,
definitely agree, 100%.
yeah. So, yeah, Coach. So, man, I wanted to have you back on because, obviously we're kind of in the thick of things with the consoles and everything. This is really interesting because we're in definitely an unprecedented time where I know Phil Spencer said, oh, the launch of the Series X isn't going to be impacted by the pandemic. Sony recently with the PlayStation 5 has said, well, we're not going to be launching as many PlayStation 5s as we did PlayStation 4s. I think that's realistic, kind of a realistic expectation to set with your consumers because look,
Yep.
all it takes is a second outbreak, right?
Yep.
Which if you read a lot of
European, yeah, are going through a second wave right now.
there's potential second wave in China right now. So there's always that threat there, and so if that happens, that's obviously going to disrupt supply chains. Like that's just not that's not going to not impact supply chains. And then I also wonder too, Code, and I don't know if you have any insight to this, but in terms of supply chains and what the world needs, I mean, I would imagine that in terms of manufacturing priorities, I mean, where does game consoles probably are in the lower end of the totem pole, I would imagine. Would that be fair to say?
Um, I don't think. Well, if you look at it, so no, what you're saying is true in that it is least important out of a lot of other things that can be manufactured, but that's not the way it works, right? Like at one manufacturing plant,
Mm-hmm.
like they're set up, right, like to produce X number of widgets. And if they don't produce those widgets, it's not like that plant can then reproduce this other thing that you need. Most often, they are set up to produce a specific category of things, and that's it. And so they can't be retrofitted to produce more valuable things, right? And so if people want to keep working the world over, let's say I work somewhere that makes masks and you got production lines set up for that, and someone that makes game consoles, it's very difficult to retrofit that game console plant to produce masks. And if you want people to keep working, the people at the game manufacturing plant will also want to be able to keep working. So there will be a desire to keep everyone employed. And they will certainly prioritize, like if resources are low,
Mm-hmm.
and if those two share the same amount of resources, then yeah, they will divert the resources to that other plant. But it's real difficult to say you got all the supplies you need, but don't make anything because you're not important. You know what I mean? Am I
Yeah.
explaining that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, that makes sense. That makes sense. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, so they're
So
not mutually exclusive, is what I'm trying to say.
gotcha. Gotcha. Okay. Um, but it's definitely, I mean, this is definitely interesting. I mean, I think, I think we'll all look back, I think, with Microsoft surprisingly announcing the Series X in December as something that's benefited them because nobody could have predicted what was going to happen with this pandemic, right?
Man,
Um,
right. Jeez.
yeah. And so, I mean, that Microsoft, I mean, unbeknownst to them, at the time, that paid off big for them. I mean, if you look back at it now, right?
Yeah, you
To,
did. Yeah.
and now Sony, I think, is probably behind the scenes retooling their review and kind of how they convey, the messaging of PlayStation 5 to gamers. I mean, they originally said, "Hey, we're not going to E3. We want to have gamers at other events, get hands on with the PlayStation 5, right?
They did, yeah.
And that's not happening now. And I think I don't know, I could be wrong, but I think that potentially poses certainly I think a potential uphill battle for Sony and their marketing team. How do we get this messaging out primarily using social media? Now, if we look at like their social media following and the response of things like the reveal of the controller, they're getting there's a lot of activity there, right? In terms of views.
Yeah. Yeah. So go ahead, man. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Code.
Personally, I think this helps Sony. And I don't mean the pandemic itself helps Sony, but I mean as a result of the pandemic, it's a level playing field for everyone. And by that, I mean everyone is doing digital reveals, virtual conferences. No one is really doing anything in place. If things had stayed the same, Sony could have taken a lot of heat for. I mean, look at what happened at the beginning, right? When they decided not to go to PAX East, and it was all of this flack about Sony's not showing up, blah blah, so on and so forth. People were actually blaming, saying that they were scared of Microsoft, that they could send one person out into the pandemic. Well, I guess it hadn't really reached that stage yet, but people were criticizing Sony for trying to look at the health of their employees and keep them safe. Now, everyone understands, well, hey, we can't criticize anyone for going to an event, and we can't criticize anyone for staying home from an event. And so what that has done, it has made it so that no one is going to any events and everyone is doing their own digital reveal. When you go to these events, you're at the mercy of booth space and attendees and all of that stuff, right? Sony has already said, they're on the record saying, hey, we can promote our own stuff through our own channels, and we're not really going to E3. And now this gives them an opportunity to do just that. In my mind, they are ahead of the game because they were the only ones thinking about digital reveals, virtual conferences. They still haven't done anything, but they have been talking about it, right? So they have yet to demonstrate that they're going to take advantage of it. But this has sort of been their idea the whole time. And if they were for real about what they were saying, they should already have a lot of their stuff mapped out, ready for digital reveals, while everyone else is adjusting and having to do it. According to Sony, this was their plan all along, so they should be in better shape.
Interesting. That's I've never thought about that, Code. Like,
that's what they said, right?
Yeah, I mean, I never thought how this, how it kind of evens the playing field. I never thought about it like that. And so, I mean, I was looking at, I kind of thought behind the scenes that, with Sony not being able to get this thing in the hands of gamers, I thought, to myself that maybe at one point I was thinking maybe they would delay the console back to, I know this sounds crazy, but I don't think it's going to happen. They would push it back to 2021, right? Where there's maybe some semblance of normalcy here in the world, but I don't think that's going to
thinking that. Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't think that's going to happen, but I do find it fascinating in a sense that, they've already said there's going to be limited amounts of PlayStation 5s available, right?
Mm-hmm.
I wonder how Microsoft hasn't said anything about availability of Series X other than they're still targeting the holiday 2020 launch date, right?
Correct. Well, correct. They haven't said there will be a shortage, but I think one of those field interviews, he implied that they were moving forward even if there was a shortage. But
gotcha.
they didn't say that directly, with just an implication. I think
okay.
The IGN one, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know, man. It's going to be interesting. I'll say this: if you want this console, you better pre-order it. You better pre-order it right away.
Who doesn't, right? So, all right, now that's the thing. That is true, Enrique. That is certainly true. But I mean, with every new console generation, you have to get in early because the eBay scammers, scalpers are going to try to buy up all the consoles and jack up the prices. So you always want to get the console as early as you can, unless you want to be price gouged, right? Like, that's not new.
No, that's not new at all. I mean,
So it's
I would.
always in your best interest to order it as soon as you can.
Yes, absolutely. I agree with that 100%. But but the thing is now we don't have that physical retail option, right?
Man, that's right.
You know,
Well,
we
I
can't.
think GameStop, I think they are doing like that curbless or curbside thing where you can. No, they've been shut down, right? Like, yeah, you could go like to
Well,
Walmart and probably get it.
I think Walmart, if I'm not mistaken, I think that they've shut down parts of their stores. I could be wrong. If anyone knows this in the live chat, please let me know.
Well,
But I.
my wife is management at Walmart.
Oh,
They
okay.
still going full force. They do
Okay.
like at the
Well,
big super
Code,
Walmart.
you got the inside track, man.
Well, I guess. I mean,
She
they
can't.
lock one side of the door, so everyone has to go through the
Yeah.
same doors. So and they count how many people are in the store, and once they get so high, they don't let any other people in.
Yeah.
So they count the people going in and the people going out to make sure it stays at a manageable level.
Yeah.
But that said, everything else is open, and they
Code.
change the hours.
Code. Do me a favor, man. Tell
What's
your
up?
wife. Tell your wife thank you. Because
I will.
let me tell you something. Seriously, I mean, obviously, we want to thank our first responders, people in healthcare,
Yeah.
doctors, nurses, everybody, right? But people in retail too, people in restaurants that are staying open. I mean, look, there's some risk associated to that, right? Because they're in contact with people,
They
right?
are.
So,
Yeah.
your wife. I mean, that's why I say tell her thank you because, without her and the people that are going to work.
And yep, man, all these minimum wage, well, they don't make minimum wage, but yeah, I understand what you're saying. The people that you traditionally look down upon, not you, of course. I mean, certain areas of our society look down on certain class of workers, and now they dependent very heavily on those people to keep working.
Yeah, to keep those those
Yep.
store shelves stocked with items that we need,
Yes, sir.
so that we can have the supplies that we need to hunker down. I mean that we got to recognize those people too, man. So that's why I said tell her I said thank you. I wasn't aware that she
I
worked in
will.
retail. So yeah.
Man, it's crazy too, because what they have to do,
Mm-hmm.
like so when people come into work, they sit across from this table,
Mm-hmm.
and she has on a mask, goggles, and gloves. And of course, the table is like 6 feet, a big
Yeah.
6 foot table. And they have to fill out this thing. Have you been coughing? Do you feel, et cetera, et cetera? These list of questions. And depending on how the employee answers, they either get sent home or they can come in and work. So they take it very seriously. Every hour they have to clean all of this stuff.
Wow.
But sometimes people say they have been coughing for more than 2 or 3 days. And even if it's not even if it's not pandemic related,
Go home.
yeah, they send them home. The point to me saying that is they are working with a smaller staff than normal, but they still have to keep up the same amount of effort, but with a smaller staff. So it's actually not easy keeping the shelves stocked because there's just way more going on than normal.
Wow. Interesting, man. Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, so I was joking to Code. I said you got the inside track. Maybe your wife could put a Series X to the side for you or a PlayStation 5.
Man, I wish that stuff is a fireable. I mean, at her level, she might not get fired, but yeah, that wouldn't go smoothly for us at all. Yeah, they
Oh,
got rules against hiding merchandise and trying to
conf-
make sure you get it.
conflict of interest, huh?
Yeah, they have strict rules against that.
Yeah. Well, Code,
I could tell you some stories.
you may be regulated to PC gaming, but that's not a bad thing, man. That's the place to be, sir.
Man, funny thing, I was gonna make a video showing my rig, but like I told you earlier, because of the pandemic, my daughter wanted to borrow my gaming rig since I barely use it, right? So it's actually at her house right now. And I'm still just waiting for this 3080 Ti, but I'm like, man, living without this PC has caused me to see just how much I rarely use it.
Uh-huh.
But last night, man, I wanted to play some Age of Empires 2, and I was like really frustrated that she has my rig,
Yep.
and I can't get it from her because we got to keep our distance. So now I really want to just build one with the 2080, but I know if I do, I'll be mad because the
Yeah.
3080 will be out like soon as I got it all together and
Mm-hmm.
working. Another one's gonna be out, and I'll be frustrated. So yeah, I would never leave PC gaming, but
Yeah.
I do realize like you don't miss your water till your well runs dry.
That's
Yeah, I
true.
really want it now that I don't have it. It's messed
Those
up, man.
those are the facts, man. No doubt. So Code, I wanted to let's get to this. The obviously, I think the Xbox Series X, the biggest advantage is the raw power that the Xbox Series X has over PlayStation 5, right? Would you agree with that?
Hold on. Let me
Okay.
clarify. Based on known specs, yes, I would say that on paper that is the biggest advantage for sure.
Okay. That's what I was saying. I'm not, on
Okay,
paper,
yeah, yeah,
absolutely. Real world performance benchmarking, we still need to see those things, right?
yep, agree. Yeah,
Yeah. And we got to see how the developers take advantage of that hardware.
right. All that stuff.
Um,
Yep.
but I see a lot of like YouTubers. I see a lot of articles out there about who does the better ray tracing. There's an article if you guys read WCCF Tech. Well, there's a article that came out April 2nd where a developer said that the power difference between PS5 and Xbox Series X won't matter that much for multi-platform titles. So you
That's
see.
true. That's 100% true.
Oh, I would agree with that. I think unless like in a case of like with Rockstar with what was it Red Dead Redemption 2, I do think that they did take advantage, and I believe that the according to Digital Foundry, the Red Dead Redemption 2 version of that game plays better on the Series X and the PlayStation 4 Pro. If I'm
Oh,
not
it does. I
mistaken.
bought both just so I could make the comparison myself. That is
Yeah.
100% true, but it's also rare.
Yeah.
That is not the norm.
Yeah, it's not the norm at all. So
Yeah.
so it's funny when I hear console warriors say, "Oh, well, first party doesn't matter. Most people buy third party," and I'm like, "Okay,
Right.
well, you think about third party, and yeah,
Yep.
To
Yep.
your point, what you just said about third party developers not really, like that rare example of Red Dead Redemption 2.
I mean, because Rockstar, they can drop that bag to customize for each platform, but they are one of the few that can and will.
Exactly. Well, you know what's interesting? Like I see, and I wanted to have you back on the show because one, I wanted to talk more about. There's a lot of back and forth about what 52 CUs mean to 36 CUs, and blah blah blah, and bandwidth and SSD doesn't matter. There's a lot of those conversations out there, and I know you again. I don't know why. No one's read your pancake example, and I know this because people keep coming back at you with. Well, what do you mean? What do you mean the weaker
Right.
specs, whole design, blah 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 blah? And I saw, and I'm like, Code. I keep seeing people
Yeah.
coming at, and I'm like, yo, like what is good? Like I don't I had this conversation on Crossfire the other day, and it was the same thing. I'm like, guys, and I think people think that when we say this, it only applies to the Xbox, but it doesn't. It's just what applies to any console that has a weaker
Man.
common denominator. Right?
So yep. Let me interrupt you real quick. There was I won't say his name because people will think it's like console warring stuff. But he told me something that was 100% true. He tried to warn me about like, hey, this is why I don't try to educate people on Twitter. He said the moment you say something bad about Xbox, they're not going to listen to what you're saying. They're only going to start defending Xbox, and they're not going to hear you. And I see this played out almost 100% of the time. Not quite, like maybe 98% of the time. They don't listen. They just start defending Xbox, saying a bunch of crazy trash.
But you didn't say anything negative towards Xbox. You were coming from the standpoint of a former game developer who's actually made games.
Yeah.
And then other people will challenge you and say, well, he doesn't make games anymore. So how does he know? We talked about that, remember?
That's funny. Yeah.
And
that's funny. Like this one person told me, he was like, you haven't built a game since the 70s or something, which is not true. I was like 12 years old in the 70s.
Nah, hey, don't lie. You weren't 12 in the 70s.
Yeah, I was born in the 60s. So anyway,
born in this, I want to see
like this ray tracing stuff, the ray tracing algorithms, that stuff was made in the 50s. And we are just now getting hardware that's capable to run what has been known to software engineers since before I was born. Ray tracing isn't like none of this stuff is new software wise. All the algorithms, all the binary things that we try, what's new is there is hardware now to help accelerate it, and it's making it practical. Whereas before you would need a supercomputer to run all this stuff. Now it is actually achievable on consumer grade devices because of hardware acceleration. But there's absolutely nothing new about ray tracing that exists today that didn't exist before, like zero. And people say that because they just don't understand like this space. They say all sorts of just crazy stuff.
Wow. So let's go with ray tracing. Well, actually, you know what? Let's park ray tracing real quick because I want to go to the weaker console thing, and we've talked about this. I feel like a million times now. But again, code. Would you can you explain again how weaker? Because I think people are conflating scalability with games being held back, right?
Design,
like,
yeah.
They feel like, well, if a game works on an Xbox One and Xbox Series X, then it's not being the weaker console isn't holding anything back, right? Because on the Series X, they're getting prettier graphics, better frames, higher resolution, right?
Yes.
So therefore, it's not being held back. But that's not the end all and be all in terms of game design. And what goes into
actually, that has nothing to do with game design. I mean, a guy was arguing with me just this weekend, saying some trash like, well, that's not true because PC games are never held back. Scaling, I'm like, oh my God, dude, you cannot scale design. You can only scale graphics. And they keep confusing design and graphics over and over and over. You cannot scale design. Your game is designed the way that it is. So I end up writing a tweet. Actually, it ended up being 2 tweets to this guy. I ended up following him. He's been following me on Twitter ever since we had that initial dispute. And he is like a great Twitter follow because like this dude is cool, but he just didn't understand.
He's a cool dude. I know what you're talking about. He's a cool dude.
Yep. And so here's the thing. Design happens way, way, way before you do any development. There is this thing when you want to make a game, anybody, they want to make a game, it does Naughty Dog, doesn't matter who it is. Everyone, when they want to make a game, even indies, especially if the indie is trying to get published, like if they're trying to get like with a known publisher to get someone to invest and fund their game, the very first thing you do before you write any code or any other stuff, before you make any character models, any of that, the very, very first step is this thing called a design document. Hey, you got a couple super chats, Brap. You want to grab those?
Yeah. Velvet Lulu with the $5 super chat. They're coming for you, Code. He just said, I just realized that Optimus Code is actually Cleveland Brown from Family Guy. Couldn't resist.
Hey, I wish I had the money them Family Guy creators.
And then JD Gamers in the house with $5 super chat. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it, man. But go ahead, man.
Yeah, so the first thing that happens, y'all, everybody, the very first step in any game is this thing called the design doc. And the rules for the design doc are kind of loose, and this may have changed since we built our game. But in the design doc, you say, like, basically, here are the mechanics. Here is the way we expect to interact with the player, how the player will engage with the game, so on and so forth. Like if you want like an open world, you would say we have one big open world. It will be joined by like a bridge for loading, whatever. You map out all the mechanics and the overall design of the game. And again, this has zero to do with graphics, no scaling. You don't even know what video card you're going to run it on at this point. It's just an idea. And that is the design doc. Once you have your design doc in hand, then you try to get funding for that game. Now, again, first parties like Naughty Dog, for example, let's just go back before Naughty Dog made The Last of Us and before they made Uncharted. I wasn't there, so I don't know, but I'm going to tell you like the most likely scenario. Even someone like Naughty Dog, they will have more than one idea for a game. They probably have several. So they'll have like 3 or 4 design docs laying around with just ideas that they want to make for a game. They will go to Sony, since they are a Sony first party studio, and they will pitch to Sony proper this game, that game, or that game, whatever. Like they will decide which game they want to actually try to get funded. And then they'll build up a team to produce the game. marketing, like all the stuff that happens after that. But it all starts with the design doc. And then a few years later, they may pick up a design doc that they had made, I don't know, 5 years ago. And they're like, okay, hey, maybe we can get this game funded now. I guarantee you, most of the dev shops out there, they have 3, 4, 5 design docs that are laying around, the things that they wanted to do for years, but for whatever reason they couldn't get funding for it. That's where all the indie games come from. The indie games, they have a design doc, they have an idea for a game, they try to get funded, they can't, so they decide to build it themselves. But it always starts with the design. And at this design stage, it has nothing to do with graphic scaling. It's not even an issue. After your design doc gets approved, or you may get like the green light to go ahead and build a prototype, and then that's when you will start targeting specific hardware, and you'll start making adjustments to the design based on, say, you shop your game to, let's say, Rockstar. And Rockstar was like, okay, we will publish this, or Take-Two, we will publish this game for you. We'll give you so much funding, build us a prototype. And because of your stature, though, you're not really big enough, so we'll give you funding to build it on PC. So if that's the case, then they will look at the minimum specs for PC, and they will build out their prototype based on whatever the minimum specs. And the good news is they can sort of set what the minimum specs have to be to match their vision, but the publisher may also get involved. So it's a little bit of give and take there, because they're not in 100% control. Once you reach out and get investments, then your investors also have a say in what happens. But the point is, you will know when you're building your prototype what the hardware is that you want your game to run on. So at that point, then you start modifying the design to match all of the hardware where your game has to run. If you get to target, like I have developers telling me all the time. When I say all the time, I mean like just this past week in our Slack channel. We got a Slack channel where we all keep in touch. But they were telling me last week.
Code, are these developers that you're engaging with on the Slack channel? Are they like small developers, medium size? I mean, like what?
Well, some of them work. Some of them work with major game studios that you have heard of. You play their games all the time.
Okay.
Yes. Some of them don't. Some have retired. Some just retired, like last year. Like there's just a mix of us. We sort of just keep in touch, right?
Well, Code, let anyone know if they're interested in coming on BRAP.
Oh, I have. So here's the thing.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, BRAP. And because I got one of my guys, I'm like, man, you need to come on. I told you, but then like he's out in Seattle.
Yeah.
And they was like ground zero for the pandemic. So a lot of things changed with him. The only thing is, and like I've heard this from a couple of them, is they think they would be boring on a podcast because they don't think that they can talk about technology in a way that most people will understand. So they just feel like it'll be a waste of time with them being on a podcast. I'm like, that's
not a waste of time at all. I honestly, I don't think enough developers explain things on. Well, I know why developers don't explain things on Twitter. A lot of it has to do with the console warring stuff. Like I've had developers tell me that. Like we've had some developers on BRAP before, and that's kind of been the consensus. You know, you say something and it doesn't fit someone's opinion or narrative or console warring, and they attack you. So they almost feel like it's just not worth my time.
Right. Because we got better things to do, and this work that we do is not easy by any stretch. And then there's all this crunch, and they don't got time to be dealing with these fuck niggas with this console war shit. They got shit to do.
God.
But that being said, like we chat, and I mean, honest to goodness conversation. Developers salivate at what they could do with the 2080 Ti if they could design for it and it alone. But they'll never get that chance. Like maybe 80 years from now, when the 2080 Ti is the minimum, they'll finally get a chance to design for it. But 100% of the time, that investor is going to want that game to sell on as many platforms as possible. And because of that, they are always going to go with the lowest common denominator. The lowest specs are going to win, and they're going to design the game for the lowest spec. Has nothing to do with, this is before programming starts at all. no graphic scaling, no resolution, no 4K, 1080p. None of that has even entered the conversation. All they're doing at this point is deciding how can the design of the game match the hardware. And if we're doing something that the lowest hardware cannot handle, we're going to change that design, period. You got a couple of super chats, bro.
Yep. Big shout out to JD Gamer Game with the $5 super chat. Says game design is the noun of the game. Development, who, what, when, where, why, how, and if something, someone, someplace happens in a game. JD Gamer with another $5 super chat says graphics are the math that supports the design, specifically the multipliers, the additives or subtractors.
That's actually true
to complete the design. So thank you for that. For
that was well said.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, you should tweet that, JD Gamer, and then you should add Brap and me, and we'll retweet it for you. That is 100% true.
Yep, well said, man. And then looks like Wowza55 says, Optimus, have you read up on velocity architecture yet? I know you mentioned in the past you were going to look into a potential advantage of it. I know we talked about that last time, actually.
Yeah.
Code.
Yep.
Did you ever get a chance? Because that's another thing that's being debated of Xbox. To counter the argument of Sony PlayStation 5 SSD and how fast it is. And by the way, So we've had developers on Brat before, and I was talking to someone from a smaller dev studio that gave us some information that's been on the show before. They gave us some insight into the PS5 before the actual announcement, it sounds like, again, I don't know because I'm not from what he's saying, and I'm taking him at his word, face value here. He's saying that a lot of developers are really. How he described it is impressed with the efficiency and speed of the PlayStation 5 design. Now, again, to me, like, what does that mean, Code, right? Like, what, when someone says something like that, like, what does that actually mean?
So again, going back to the Pancake Chef example on Twitter, I may just need to pin that. So the thing is that it's not just any one piece by itself. So you can't look at the specs and say this GPU has 45 billion computations that it can do per second. Okay, that's great. But now the rest of the system, though, still has to use those 45 billion calculations per second to its advantage. And so if you've got multiple CUs going, right? So you got this is like parallel process. A CU is very similar to a core in a motherboard chip, right? So you got like an 8-core machine or 8-core chip on your motherboard. That means you can run 8 parallel tasks, right? And they can all happen at the same time. And then you can have threading within those. But let's just say that one of your threads has to block. And the blocking thread, all that means is, hey, you got this one piece of the computer over here, he's doing some work. You got another piece over here, and she's doing some work, and they working together at the same time. But let's say process A needs the user's last name, and process B is in the middle of retrieving the user's last name. Well, process A has to block and wait while process B retrieves the last name. Process B retrieves the last name. And now process A can use that to put it on the screen to say, welcome to Xbox Optimus, whatever it is. But they're going to have to work together. And then that task switching back and forth, that is part of the synergy and the overall design of the system. So one of the things that can happen is that even though this is just an example, I'm not saying this is real, it's just an example of like the efficiency of the entire system working together. I'm doing these 45 billion calculations. However, I'm not switching threads very well. So even though I've got 4 sets of calculations ready and they've been processed, and now they need that logic to be processed by the main application, but the application is blocked on a thread waiting for this other thing to finish. And so the speed at which those calculations were rendered has been made useless because the app can't use them. The app is the game. The game can't use the benefits of those calculations because the process of switching tasks is so slow that it has negated that advantage. And so while on paper, and that's why you see bookmarks, you'll see stuff on paper looks really great, but then when you get the real world test, it didn't perform as expected. And it wasn't because that one piece wasn't true to form, it's because that one piece has to work with 1,000 other pieces. And it's the synergy among all of them working together that's going to be the determining factor. So you have to look at the entire system working together. If one thing is really good at one thing, and this other thing is really good at another thing, but them coming together, they may not work well. It's like a basketball team, right? You got people that play together as a team, and then you got just a bunch of individuals. They are great scorers by themselves, but if you put them on the team, they don't want to share the ball. So the team is actually worse, while that one player is actually still really good. You have to mesh together. And that's what they mean when they say the overall synergy of the system.
You just described the Washington Wizards, by the way. So thank you for that code.
Man, John Wall come back, it's gonna be a wrap, man. But we digress.
Man. Yeah,
I got faith in Wall, but don't change the subject, man.
But it's interesting. Like I look at, again, and I'm not a game designer. I've never made a video game, but when I look at like the Xbox Series X, I mean. And I don't know. Back to I forget who asked you the question. They asked you if you looked at the velocity architect or the velocity or what was. Did you look into that? I forget what it's called now. Yeah. So
the velocity architecture. Yeah.
So what? Because that's, I think that's a question that came up last time we did this, where someone was we were talking about how quick the PS5 is, and then someone will say, oh, well, Xbox Series X has velocity architecture. Can you explain that a little bit? Like, what does that mean for the Xbox Series X?
Well, so what, long story short, it means that they also have a strategy for dealing with super fast data throughput to get data off of the drive into RAM so that it can be used by the CPU GPU combination. And that is basically saying they have not ignored that aspect of the pipeline, that they understand the speed at which they can load data, decompress it, and get it into RAM is also as important as the GPU, and they have taken measures to address that as well. And it looks really nice, like no joke, no cap. It looks really impressive, again, on paper. But I believe them. I believe that it is going to hold true. We're going to get lightning fast input, output from the Series X, or the Sirius X, as Forte would say. So I have
the Sirius X.
Yeah, man, the Sirius X will have no problem with data throughput, none. Question is it as fast as the PS5? And that's the thing. And this is one of those LeBron versus Jordan debates.
But would it be faster though? I mean, it's got like
it won't be. There's no way it will be faster.
But okay. Is it because of
again, it's like Jordan versus LeBron, right? Just because you praise Jordan doesn't mean that LeBron is trash. It's just he's not as good as LeBron or Jordan. And pick whichever one of those you want for 1 and 2.
Jordan's GOAT.
Well, of course, but we got younger generation on the in the audience.
Like, let me tell you, when let me tell you something.
I think The Last Dance starts tonight, by the way.
Yeah, I can't wait to watch. Jordan never lost the NBA Finals. I'll leave it at
that. So all I'm saying is it will not be good as the good. Good is a relative term, right? Because
I was going to say it's relative, because like when I look on paper and I'm looking at, because I'm trying to understand, like as a gamer, I'm trying to understand like this. When I look at the spec sheet that we looked at last time we had this conversation, when you're saying on paper, the PS5, and correct me if I'm not understanding what you're saying here, but you're saying that on paper the PS5 is faster.
100%, yes.
And why is that? Is it because of like when we looked at, I think the bandwidth? I forget what numbers they gave. We talked about this, and I'd have to pull up the spec sheet again. But is that
so? Like right now, let's just say you've got USB 2 on your machine, right? On your PC.
Okay.
like the little trash PC that you got at home.
Hey, let me just okay. We're not Code. We're not gonna we're not gonna get into this PC trashing stuff, sir. My PC is a very capable machine.
Oh, I
Okay.
ain't even tripping. I told you I'm without mine, and I regret letting her borrow it. So
Let me tell you,
I'm just.
it's only a matter of time, Code, before you come back to PCMR, sir. It's only a matter of time. You know what's gonna happen. You're gonna get that 3080 Ti. You're gonna be like, man, these consoles are trash.
Man, it might be in my future. And I told you I rebuild myself every few years, and I update myself with my new worldview.
Yeah. Hey, let me grab the super chat real quick for JD Gamer.
Okay.
JD bringing that smoke on Michael Jordan. JD with the $5 super chat says Jordan's first ring was only won because of the Jordan rules introduced into the NBA to allow their cash cow to get that first ring. Hashtag sorry, not sorry.
First, JD Gamer, that is trash. Wrong. The Jordan rules was made by the Detroit Pistons, and the Jordan rules was a overall scheme that basically meant nothing easy for him. Foul him, punch him, kick him. We don't care. Make him regret going to the basket. The Jordan rules were created to stop Michael Jordan, not to allow him to succeed. Pay another $5 and try again, sir, because that is 100% wrong.
All right, guys. Hey, by the way, everyone in the live chat, thank you so much. Hit that like button if you haven't done so already. Please ask Code questions in the live chat if you have them. By the way, it's easier if we can see them in color. Wink, wink. But seriously, we appreciate the support. Hit that like button, and we'll get back to outside of the NBA chatter here. We're going to get back to what Code was discussing in terms of the PS5 being faster. So
so look at your PC, all right, and let's just say you have USB 3, okay? No, let's say you got USB 2. So let's just say your I/O card handles USB 2, and you see a drive that you want to put a new drive in your machine, just a USB drive. You want to plug it in, external, and it has like 50 gigabytes a second. Read-write speed as an example, but it requires USB 3. The USB spec, I don't know what it actually is, but as an example, let's say the USB spec is 20 gigabytes a second. And so you got a USB 2 I/O in your system. You can buy that faster drive all you want, but that drive is only going to go as fast as the USB-C controller that is plugged into, period. The drive cannot go faster than a controller that's controlling it. The reason that the Sony experience on paper is so much better is because they got a super fast drive, and they also created a custom controller that will allow you to get the full speed of the drive. So that drive, they have like this complete I/O architecture that the whole thing is architected around getting that maximum I/O. And apparently they pulled it off. I don't have a dev kit, so I don't know. But if the facts, or if the presentation is factual, then they have pulled that off, and their I/O is faster than the Series X because the Series X did not build a custom controller. They have a really fast drive using a traditional controller, and they are speeding up things with like hardware decompression. So they got that so that their BC pack, they can compress the textures, make them smaller, and then decompress them on the fly super fast and get the data moving through. But they are still at the mercy of the traditional microcontroller for the drive. Sony's is faster because they also created a custom controller to handle all of the data going back and forth.
Gotcha. Now, guys, I want to just throw this out there, and it's crazy I have to even say this. Code is not saying that the Xbox Series X sucks. He's not saying that because, we're going to get people.
When did I say that?
Well, people are going to interpret you saying that the PS5 being faster means because, what are you talking about?
The PS5 was faster. I said the I/O on the PS5 is faster than the velocity architecture on the Series X. And I stand by that. I ain't scared of these people.
I ain't scared of you.
Yeah, man.
Rest in peace, Bernie Mac. But okay, so you're saying the I/O compared to velocity architecture, the I/O for the PS5 is faster than the Series X, correct? That's okay?
Absolutely, 100%.
Again, it doesn't mean the Xbox Series X sucks, people.
It's not. No, it's really, again, if Sony hadn't did what they did with that, no one would be, because it's not slow. The Xbox Series X velocity architecture is not slow at all. It is lightning fast. It's just Sony's is greased lightning fast. It's just faster. And that's nothing to fight about, nothing to cry about. I mean, Microsoft, they're not crying over it. They're not fighting it. They're not trying to dispute it. They're like, no Microsoft representative is saying, no, it's not. All they're doing is saying, hey, we're focusing on what we did, and here are the things that we have done to address data throughput, and they are nice things, and they are. They have never said that it is faster, and they have never complained about any of that other stuff.
Yeah.
And it's just a simple fact. Sony invested more in I/O. Microsoft invested more in raw graphics out. I mean, it's not that hard.
Yeah. So let me ask you something in regards to ray tracing. That's, by the way, very, very interesting. Great insight, by the way, Code. Definitely appreciate it, man. And hopefully the listeners maybe learned a thing or two regards to these consoles.
Man, get JD Gamer, man. Tell him a simple Google search.
He's coming at you, sir. He's like, no.
Dude, he probably wasn't even alive when Jordan was playing. Ask Forte. Ain't Forte from Michigan?
Yeah.
Ask Forte what the Jordan rules are and see what he'll tell you. Where is Forte, by the way?
I don't know. Forte, if you want to hop in, brother. He's in the live chat.
He in the chat?
He's in the chat. Yeah, he's in the chat. So, JD Gamer with the $5 Trooper says, hashtag not true. The Jordan rules were the rules introduced to allow the ball handler, once entering the paint, to not be befuddled by the defender.
That is the exact opposite of what the Jordan rules were. The exact opposite.
All right, so I love how we're talking like tech and then also sports at the same time, like on the side as a sidebar. Oh my goodness. I
think that's really important, man.
What's up? Real quick, we got Forte in the house. What's up, Forte?
Hold up, man. I'm only gonna take up a little bit of y'all time because
Forte, what's up, man?
What's up, man? I'm just gonna come here because I'm at work and and JD killing me right now. Being a person that's from Michigan, I know what the Jordan rules were. They were designed to put Michael Jordan on his ass every time he came to the plate. Anytime Michael Jordan came to the paint, it was designed to knock him down,
knock him the fuck out.
That's why they had Adrian Dantley. That's why they had Bill Laimbeer.
Yes.
That's why they had all those big trees in there because they had they had 6 fouls to give each of them. And the more Michael Jordan came in there, the more they deterred him from wanting to come in there. But what made Michael Jordan the greatest player of all time is the fact that it didn't matter. Because sooner or later he beat it anyway. But for those 3 years of the Jordan rules, it was nothing but about Michael Jordan put on his ass, played against Pistons.
And Pippen had a headache and couldn't play against the Pistons because he didn't want that smoke.
Because he ain't want that. He didn't want that smoke.
Pippen got chopped down hard in one of the playoff games. I'll never forget that.
Man. Yeah, so
JD, you got that wrong, bro. Your gaming knowledge is on point, but your sports knowledge you need to reroute, fam.
And some people can't talk sports in game. You know, I love JD though, but that's my boy. But
yeah, we love JD. Big shit.
Y'all have a really good show. I'll be in the chat, but nice conversation. I love what you got to say, Code, because half these people don't understand logic.
Cut that out, man. If they just don't understand, it ain't no reason to criticize them.
Sorry, not sorry.
Oh my goodness. Forte, great seeing you, brother.
All right, see you guys later.
All right, see you later, bro. We have another $5 super chat from Velvet Lulu. Says JD Gamer is a prime example of a gamer that doesn't know what he's talking about. Come on, let's be kind to our fellow gamer here, JD Gamer.
Yeah,
who we love and appreciate here on Rap. Yeah.
As a matter of fact, let me address that real quick. So, like I told you, you said you've seen it. I got pulled into this thing with Crossfire and RGX and like Optimus Code will destroy you and he'll do this and I'm like, whoa, wait a minute, wait. So let me clear a few things up. Number one, just because I say something doesn't make it right. I can be wrong. just like anybody else. I'm not, but I could be.
I might be wrong, but probably not.
I mean, I did make one mistake before, and that's when I thought I was wrong, but I really wasn't.
Mm.
So, all jokes aside, just because I say something, it's not like I am the end all be all word of truth when it comes to anything gaming. Some stuff it's a matter of facts. Some stuff it's a matter of opinions. I have opinions like everybody else, and sometimes my opinions can be wrong. Sometimes I will make educated guesses and they could still be wrong. So just because I'm saying it doesn't mean it's true. You should challenge me the way you challenge anyone else. But there is a difference in, hey, I'm trying to learn something, so I'm challenging what you said because I don't see how it makes sense or how it adds up. There's a difference in that and then just completely not listening at all because you don't like the message. And so you just want to get on some trash and you just want to defend your position and you're not listening. I have low patience for those people, but I have high patience for people that are just trying to learn and they can keep asking questions because they don't know. And there was a time when I didn't know. I understand what that's like. So I'm never going to hate on somebody for getting something wrong or not knowing because we all make mistakes. But I will lose my patience with people that's just saying a bunch of dumb shit because they damage controlling for whatever platform they love.
Yeah, no, I hear you, man. And I've seen you do that on Twitter, man. So, yeah, like with the whole weaker specs don't hold, gaming back or whatever that,
Man,
so,
yeah.
yeah, especially after you've given so many examples of how that actually works, and people are still like, no, it's not true. So,
Man, yeah, let's move on because we can spend the whole show on that alone.
yeah. Hey, shout out to JD giving in with $5 super chat. Says, I know Forte and I've spoken to him. He's always clowning since the way back. I.e., we have never agreed about this subject. # we'll talk again, Forte. Thank you, JD.
Hey, Brad, I'm going to
yeah.
send you a link, and then can you put this link on the page?
Yes, sir.
Please?
Yeah, go ahead, man.
Okay.
So let's talk about ray tracing. Like I look, I don't know how. I know what ray tracing is. I don't know how, because I see this, and I'm not trying to bring console war stuff here, but I'm just trying to bring some maybe some facts to the table. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Or some perspective, if you will, because I hear people arguing about which console is going to have better ray tracing. Me personally, that's not important to me. I think it's great they both will have ray tracing. To me, it's like if one does it better than the other, that's fine. Like it's not going to change, my stance on which console I own.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, for me, it's the games, right?
100%.
Are they good quality games that I want to play on a particular platform? That to me, at the end of the day, that's all that matters, right? At the end of the day, that's it.
Yes, sir.
But I get if you're looking at like both consoles code, and I think you said this earlier. Did you say that CUs don't have anything to do with ray tracing? I don't know if you said that or if maybe that was someone else.
I said that a while ago, and it's not that they don't have anything to do with ray tracing. It's just it is not again going back to the pancake chef example. It is not necessarily true that having more CUs will equal better ray tracing. And like I said at the thing of the pancake example, hardware, your GPU, your IO, your SSD, all of that stuff, that contributes to making stuff possible. The developer is what contributes to making stuff good. So you can't say that the Series X will have better ray tracing because it has higher CUs. The whole point of the pancake example is that the dev teams are not going to use all of this stuff the way that it was intended. They'll be like, oh, hey, actually, if we divert this from here to here, we can do better ray tracing with half the CUs. It's just as a foolish example. But the point is, they're going to do new things with the hardware other than what was intended by the hardware designers. Happens all of the time, which is why you get games like Death Stranding on a 1.6 teraflop PS4 vanilla, because they are tapping into and doing all sorts of things with the hardware because they are learning to maximize it, and they are rerouting diverting things from one place to another. It happens all of the time. So I won't use the word it will have better ray tracing or good ray tracing versus poor ray tracing. I will say, according to paper, the Series X has an advantage because it has higher or it has more CUs, but more CUs does not equal better ray tracing. Better or worse is a output of the dev skill and talent. I hope that makes sense.
So what you're saying is that it's really up to the developers how they implement it, then, or how they use the hardware.
100%.
So
100%.
But at least on paper, I guess, Code, like, isn't this, what are the Series X? Because look, on paper, it's the more powerful machine, right?
It is the more graphically capable machine. Yes. I don't know what you mean when you say powerful, so I'm gonna be very specific. It is more graphically capable than the PlayStation 5. Yes.
Okay. So, and that's, I meant power, like, I'm thinking about like GPU, that stuff,
Okay.
teraflops. Yeah.
Absolutely. In that regard, yes, 100% true.
Yeah, but just on paper, I would imagine though that the Series X would probably implement ray tracing better, right? Like that's at least on paper, right? But then
there you go. You said you use better again, so better is going to be subjective. You can say that it has more resources dedicated to allow ray tracing, but you can't use the word better. All right, let me do this a different way. Have you ever seen Rocky 4?
Which one's that? There's so many Rockies.
The one where he fought the Russian and Apollo Creed got killed.
Spoilers. No, I'm joking.
I'm guilty.
No, I'm joking.
Let's do it a different way. Let's do this a different way, a completely different way. Mm-hmm. Let's just say you have, keeping the sports analogy, so let's just say you got JD Gamer, and he's working out, and he has a top-notch facility, and he's got a gym that's got top-notch facility, top-notch doctors. He's got the retractable rims. He's got an indoor gym with like the perfect floor. He's got a shooting machine. He's got trainers. He's got coaches. He has all of the best equipment, and he is in a position to be a really good basketball player and an excellent shooter because he has everything around him to make that possible. And then there's Forte. All he has is this crooked rim in his backyard with half the net torn off, but he shoots on that thing every day and he shoots 5,000 shots a day. Do you believe that because JD Gamer has the better facility that he will be the better shooter?
No.
Okay. Now we can agree that he has a higher access to resources and he has more spectacular resources, but there is no guarantee that those resources will lead to something that you can label as better. We can say he has more, but we can't say it's better. We can say the Series X is positioned itself well to do more with ray tracing, but we cannot say that that will be better than what other developers do with the PlayStation. The PlayStation has higher clocks. Like they said, you will get less bounces, but you can get more detail with each bounce, which is better. 5 bounces with less detail or 3 bounces with more detail. Like, who's to say? So it's not really better or worse. Wow. It's just, they're just different.
That's fascinating, man. Because I read about the bouncing thing online, and how you just explained that totally just made sense to me.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, wow. Compared to the article I was reading, I'm like, what the hell are they talking? Like, what is this? What is bouncing? I'm like, what?
Yeah.
But now,
like Pixelbit G, he just put in a good thing. He said it's not good versus poor. It's just more capable versus less capable. Exactly. You could safely say that based on CU count, the Series X is going to be a more capable ray tracing machine. But the PlayStation is doing it at higher clocks, so that more detail may end up being better, even though it was less capable. And that's the thing. Better or worse is a human judgment.
Wow.
That
That's fascinating.
Yeah. So like the gamers will decide if this is better or worse. The hardware just decides what's available. These are the tools. Yes, the Series X gives you more tools. It is more capable on paper. But at the end of the day, all of those pieces have to work together with the skill of the developer. And again, if you understand the Pancake Chef example, all of these questions are meaningless because it's always going to boil down to how did the developers use the tools? Is just not going to matter.
That's why I've always said first party is so important.
100%.
Like I
Yes,
see.
because go ahead, man. Yep.
I see people downplay the importance of first party. Oh, well, those games don't sell as well as, Call of Duty, and we know that more people play third party games based on sales, so first party doesn't matter. I'm like, no, it's not. It's not how that works. First party is very important. I think we've seen this. I mean, you mentioned Death Stranding,
Yeah.
but you look at like God of War, and I forget how many teraflops the PlayStation 4 is. What 1.4 or something?
1.6 or 1.9 or something.
1.6. Yeah. So I mean, and that speaks to console optimization, like you've talked a lot about on this show. I mean, that game looks phenomenal.
It does, and that's what I'm saying. It's like all of these questions are meaningless. What you should be asking is how much time do the devs have to build out their vision to make it the best that it can be using these new tools. That's it. And again, for a dev team, teraflops don't matter. I told you on this show a few weeks ago, I said the difference in my mind is the PS5 is focusing on doing new things that we haven't done before. And the Xbox Series X is focusing on doing things that we already do now way better than we were ever able to do them. So one is focused on improving what we already do to a astronomical scale, and the other one is doing new stuff while sacrificing the ability to go all out on the stuff that we do now to as great a degree as the other one.
You know what's interesting? You mentioned that, and actually we had Gaming Forte's Sony PlayStation retail rep actually joined us about 2 weeks ago on BRAP, and he said something that really kind of caught my attention. Maybe kind of ties into what you're saying in terms of Sony's design choice here. He said that he felt like Sony's design choice was more about designing things that would. I don't know, what do you say? He kind of like compared it to like what Nintendo does, how they design their hardware is designed around how they want to design games, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
And he relayed how Sony's design choice with PlayStation 5 revolves around how Sony wants to build around how they want to design their first party games and potentially
makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah, and so that's fascinating. I mean, now it's code. I will say this. I that point you just made about Xbox Series X, doing more of the same at an astronomical level, more improvement, where Sony's more focused on doing newer things. I've had people say, well, that's not true because the Xbox Series X is more powerful. It's got all this new hardware, all the bells and whistles, if you will.
See, that's again, that word powerful is ambiguous again, and that's why I don't like using it. So to be very specific, it is more graphically capable, yes. But that is the same thing as building the same worlds, just with scaling. So it looks better, but it's the same worlds designed the same way, but they look way better. Okay, great. I mean, I'm not against that per se. I want games to be as graphically intensive as I can get for a console. Sure. But I also want new experience. And the Xbox Series X is not focused on doing new experiences. I mean, it's just that simple.
But wouldn't the developers, though, like you said earlier, like wouldn't they they're going to be the ones that push those newer experiences of the Series X, though? So it is. I mean, like we will see newer stuff on that console.
So let's do it like this. So, man, I wish I had the link, but like y'all should watch Porter Rock. He did a video trying to explain like the IO advantage, and he did a really good job. And I thought the video was fantastic. I retweeted it.
Code. You know what? I'm sorry, real quick. I got to get the super chat. Miss JD's JD again with the $5 super chat says, let me correct my grammar. The NBA's response to the Jordan rules, i.e. the rules introduced to allow fouls and flagrant fouls for using Jordan rules.
Okay, yeah. Now that's the response to the Jordan rules. Sure, that I got no argument with that. 100%.
Yeah. Hey, I'm going to give a big shout out to Double M70 in the live chat. I've actually known Double M for 18 years. We used to be on the same Xbox Live
Awesome.
Xbox Live gaming clan together. And we're Xbox Live beta testers, so big shout out to him.
What's up, man? Hey, Double M. So do Enrique got skills or what, man? You can tell the truth from way back, man. Hey, set the record straight, man.
Oh my gosh, you're funny, man. You're funny.
All right, so like I was saying, so my man right there, felony 187. He says, "Man, felony 187. That's some serious crimes right there."
I know,
bro.
right?
What new thing can we expect from the PS5? And again, going back to Porter Rock's video, he got this example from a dev, and it was a really, really, really great example. Oh, Double M says, yeah, you got skills. You lucky, man. Boy, you lucky. All right, so with the developer gave him the example. It was a great example. When you're moving around in the game world, let's say that the game can load data off the disk. So like right when you're looking at a scene, right, you can see, like, maybe as an example, say you can see 10 blocks ahead of you. So 10 blocks to the head and 10 blocks to the side. So the game world will render 10 blocks worth of data. Let's just say you in a city, and it's rendering 10 blocks to the front of you and to the side of you all the time. As you move forward, then it's going to render 10 more blocks, so on and so forth. So as you're moving around, the game is always loading in, preparing what you will run into as the gamer as you move around. And if you turn to the right, then it's going to load in 10 blocks. They're going to now be in front of you. What was in front of you before is now going to be on the left. So the game is loading all of this stuff. But because the game takes 2.5 seconds to load the data from the disk, the speed at which you can move forward will only be, let's just say, 2 meters a second. And you won't be able to go any faster, because if you went faster, the game could not load data to keep up with you. So they have to limit how fast you can move through the world based on how fast they can load data to account for your actions. So if they can load data at like I said, like 2.5 seconds to load 10 blocks worth of data, and they'll let you move at 2 meters per second. When you're walking, it's going to be slower than that. And when you're in a car, you'll be a little faster, a motorcycle, whatever. But eventually there will be a vehicle that actually moves at that fastest pace, which is the 2 meters per second. And they have to do that. That is not like a choice. The hardware is saying you have to let your player move at this speed only and no higher. Now, like the guy told Porter Rock from his example, and again, y'all should go look at the video because he does a really good job of explaining more than this. I'm just still in the example that he gave to demonstrate it. In a dev shop somewhere, they decide they want to make a game and they want to be the Flash. And so they want to move at superhuman speed. Well, with the PS5, because they can load 500 blocks in front of you in 1 second, now the speed that player can move through the game is like 5 times faster than it was. So now, because they can load the data in faster, they can let you move faster. So now when you're playing as the Flash, instead of moving at 2 meters per second, you can probably move at like 900 meters per second, because the game will allow you to move faster because you can load the world faster than you could have before, and you're not constrained by the load speed of the hardware. That same Flash game would not be able to be made on a Series X because it cannot load the data fast enough for him to move that fast. So those designers would be limited to the same 2 meters per second, although it's a little bit faster. So they may be able to move at like 9 meters per second.
Mm-hmm.
But it won't be anywhere near to what can happen on the PS5 because they can load the data throughout the world on demand instead of having to have so much preloaded. And so that experience could never come to the Series X, no matter how many graphics they put or how high or low the resolution was. That game is not possible on the Series X.
Let me ask something, Code. Actually, let me get this $5 super chat from JD Gamer again. Thank you, sir. With the awesome $5 super chat, says based on specs, it looks like the Xbox Series X will be capable to create more complex geometry, the CPU, and potentially better graphics, but PS5 will stream higher LOD or load.
Level of detail.
Level of detail, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I mean, I agree mostly with that. He's not wrong. But I think because of the speed at which the PS4 can load the data, that it can also have pretty complex geometry with that same high level of detail without as many gates. So like a gate, like they tell you all the time, where you have to get on the elevator, you got this long elevator ride. And I mean, if you in the know it all, you know that this 20-second elevator ride was only because they had to load the level. And the more complex the level, the more complex the geometry is in the level, the longer it takes to load it. And so I think that they are solving both problems with the PS5, is that they can have the complex data, maybe not with as many graphics features, not with as many shaders, true, but I think the geometry itself can be complex with that high level of texture detail because they can just load it so fast and recompute it on the fly so fast. But yeah, Xbox will be more capable in how pretty that geometry can look, but it can't load it as fast as the PS5 on paper. We got to see how all of this matches out, but that's on paper.
Gotcha. I want to go to an early mention in the chat. No Russian said Sony did that with PlayStation 3 actually, and it cost them. I think he's referring to what we said, kind of designing the system around how they want to move maybe gaming design forward. I think kind of how what you had mentioned, with the design of the PlayStation 5, how it's kind of I forget what you said.
Do new things.
Do new things, and he's saying that Sony tried this with PlayStation 3 to cost them, which I think maybe he's alluding to with the PlayStation 3 and cell architecture. Look, it just wasn't easy to develop for, as it was for the 360. Is this a scenario where that could this play out again this generation with the PS5 and the Xbox Series X, or is that not the case because they're basically based on the same type of architecture?
The thing that you said, like you answered that really well, bro. I don't need to say a thing.
Okay. Thank you, Code.
You learning, boy.
I'm learning. I'm telling you.
Man.
Let me tell you, I love talking to people who, like, if I'm interested in the subject matter and I'm not the expert, I love talking to people who know this stuff because I want to learn. I'm interested, right?
Yep, exactly.
Looks like a big shout out to Pixel Big G. Cody has a question for you. He says, have you looked into the 100 gigabyte of instant access storage on Xbox Series X and how that would impact the system?
So is that the DirectStorage thing he's talking about?
I'm not sure. Maybe you can elaborate.
So assuming it is the DirectStorage thing, that's the thing where Microsoft is talking about, or like games like Red Dead Redemption 2, how much it's like constantly pulling data off the disk and loading as you go. And it takes like maybe 5 cores to make sure all the data is loaded and processed, and how they can do all of that now with, I don't know, they said like in 1/10 of the time with using only 1 core or 1/10 of a core. And with that DirectStorage, that allows them to process that stuff. And that's great. And again, that's an example of what I meant when I said they are focusing on doing what we already do, but just doing it better. So, right, we already move data off the disk at a certain speed, and Microsoft has implemented a technique where, hey, you used to move data this fast, now you can move it this fast, So those games that did this can now do it better. Great, but that is not the same thing as saying we're going to make a new style of game that is completely different than any of this and allow you to do stuff that you couldn't do before. So this is improved. Again, Microsoft is improving astronomically. It's no slouch, right? Like they are improving by a great deal what we already do. And Sony is making it possible to do new things that we don't already do. And I don't think it's going to cost them at all.
Interesting. Well said, Code. I look. I these are great. There's no argument. These are great systems. I mean, compared to the current generation. I mean, really, seriously, big shout out to Microsoft and Sony for designing what I think are very, very awesome machines. I mean, I'm not going to say this live because Forte will pull receipts on me. So I'm going to.
I think I know what you was going to say. You better be careful.
Yeah, I'm not going to say
Don't
anything.
admit nothing.
Yeah, I'll tell you after we go off air. But big shout out to JD Gamer gave the $2 super chats. To be fair, PS5 I/O is 40 to 50% faster than the Xbox Series X.
Yep. And let me caution: this is all on paper, right? Like when the system comes out. What we could see something all we're doing is giving educated commentary on the specs on paper. We don't know any of this stuff until the machines are actually out and we can test it.
Exactly. So, it looks like Pixel BitG. He's saying having 100 gigabytes available at all times isn't something PS5 can do either, right?
I'm not sure. So, like, in what way is he asking that? I'm not sure what he's saying. I mean, it's like they won't need to. Like they can load the data so fast on the fly that they don't really need a cache of data. Like it's two different ways to accomplish the same thing. One of them is just still a little bit faster, right? They don't compete with each other. They're the same thing.
Gotcha.
You know, like you can so you can right click a link to say open in a new tab, or you set up always open in a new tab. They're both going to get you the same outcome. Is just one. They're just two ways of doing the same thing, except for Sony has eliminated the need for that because they can just naturally load the data fast enough that they don't need 100 gigabytes available.
Oh, I hope that answers. Yeah, I hope that answers your question, Pixel BG. But yeah, feel free to elaborate, man, in the live chat. So those are great questions, by the way. Great questions by everyone here in the live chat. And no one's console warring so far that I've seen, which is great.
And man, and we got to make sure we clarify again. This is the whole comparing Jordan to LeBron. With these types of conversations, when you pick one and say Jordan was better at dunking, it doesn't mean LeBron was trash at dunking. It's just you are asking us to choose between both of these things that are great. If you have to choose between Muhammad Ali and Sugar Ray Leonard, it's like they're just different classes, different weight classes, different things. But it's like just because you pick one doesn't mean the other one is trash. That only happens when the console war stuff, because there can be one absolute king winner. And so, and that's part of the fun, right? Because when it's jokes and stuff, it actually is. I've seen some pretty funny console war jokes and stuff.
Like from our good friend J-Dub, Kratos.
Man, that dude is hilarious, man.
Oh, my gosh, yeah.
And I've seen Dealer with some pretty funny stuff, too. Like, I ain't going to even lie. But it's been fun. Like, Tim Dawes has done some funny stuff. But it's when it starts to get into a thing where you can't have honest conversation and just discuss pros and cons because somebody's going to be offended because you said Jordan was better than LeBron. And now, so that means you think LeBron is trash. That's just not true.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, I mean, it really comes down to what we said earlier. It comes down to the talent, the developers, the tools they have, and the quality of titles. I mean, that's what it comes down to at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
I mean, you can have a 2080 Ti PC and have terrible games. You're not going to enjoy that 2080 Ti, or you know what I mean. You're not. It's going to be irrelevant, because you're not enjoying the games. You're not enjoying the gameplay.
Exactly. Yep.
So I think people lose that perspective, and that's why I can't wait to start seeing some of these games. I know Microsoft showed off, Hellblade 2, which I thought looked awesome. That CGI or that trailer they showed at the Video Game Awards.
Man, yeah.
Yeah, I mean that looked fantastic, right? I mean, and so I can't wait to see, what Microsoft and Sony have on the table to show us with these new consoles. I just we did see the ray tracing on Minecraft. Have you seen that? That actually looks pretty cool.
Yeah, I've seen it. They did it on Minecraft and I think on Gears.
Oh, do they do it on Gears?
I thought so. Yes,
I know Gears has some ray tracing to begin with. Had it to begin with.
Yeah, they were showing like a little demo with like they had rebuilt Gears in a week or something, and they like had showed it with and without ray tracing back and forth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I use ray tracing on Call of Duty. And it looks. I mean, like there's certain like maps or on this campaign. The one particular where you go. And you go in the house in London and you're using night vision and you turn on that ray tracing and you're going to the back alley of the house and it's nighttime, but you see the shadows and the lighting. It's actually pretty cool.
Yep.
And ray tracing
another point too. Like ray tracing isn't a magic bullet. It's going to largely depend on the scene that is being rendered as to how much value it adds.
Absolutely. Because there were some scenes in Call of Duty, I'm like, but at that night scene, the lighting and the shadows, I was like, woo! I was like, okay.
Yep, exactly. It's how they use it, 100%, man.
Yeah. JD,
you got a 2080 Super, right?
No, I have a 2070.
Okay, 2070. Yeah, man.
Yeah. I mean, and the best examples of ray tracing I've seen have been Call of Duty, Control, and Metro Exodus. And Metro Exodus, it looks pretty good. Not especially when you're like in the sewers and stuff, and it's darker and there's lighting and shadows and stuff. Those are, I would say those are the three games that I've actually played on my PC. But I don't, it's funny. Like it also, there is a hit on frame rates too.
Of course,
on performance. So with that being said, with the hit, because we've talked a lot about this on Twitter, with the hit of the performance hit to ray tracing, and I was thinking about what you were saying in terms of the one advantage that consoles have. Optimus, you were saying that consoles, there's that level of what is it? Now I can't remember what you said.
Parity, convenience.
No, not parity. Optimization.
Oh yeah,
yeah. That's the advantage that consoles have, and I will concede that point to you, Code. That is true. And you only have to look at games like Gears 5, which I think look great. God of War. I mean, how do you think they're going to address this potential performance hit? Like, and if I think about optimization, as I understand optimization, will ray tracing not be as as much as taxing on these consoles than PC?
Well, no, that's not the case. So I think that it doesn't matter what the platform is. Like those activities require the same amount of computational overhead as anything else, no matter where it is. So it's just going to depend on how they design the game, what frame rate they're targeting, right? Because if you're targeting 4K 60 or 1080p 60, whatever, it doesn't matter. Whatever you're targeting, as long as you can keep the frames above your target with the ray tracing, you're good. On PC people love the frame rate counter, and if they drop from 220 to 185, they feel like they're missing out on something when they still running at 185 frames with ray tracing in 1440p, and they'll well, we lost something. Really, you didn't. You gained. So I think that long as you hide the frame rate counter and you targeting 60 frames with ray tracing, I think it'll be fine. That's even on PC. Just PC players want to see their frame rate counter, and they want to see it in the high hundreds.
Yeah. You know what's interesting? Speaking of frame rate, the frame rate counter, Warzone, Call of Duty Warzone just did a patch on PC. And I'll have to talk to you too about this offline because there's some other things that go into this. But ever since that patch, I've noticed that my frame rates, where they were like in the hundreds, are now like in the 80s, and like they go as far as like low 60s.
Right, and you don't like it, do you? Don't just seeing that number drop, it frustrates you, doesn't
Oh
it?
yeah, because it was like in the hundreds before, so I don't know what's going on. Like I was talking to Mooch, and Mooch is like, "No, I'm still getting in the hundreds in terms of frame rates on Warzone." I'm like, "I used to get that. Like, what happened?" And it happened ever since this patch happened. So I don't know. Like
So data shows there's data that shows that once you get, for most people above 60, they can't tell the difference. For most people above, and for the majority of people above 90, they really can't tell the difference. I'm curious, if you turned off your frame rate counter, would you be able to tell you were missing frames? I think it's just psychological, seeing that number go up and down.
Yeah, no, I honestly could tell you that I haven't seen a difference, but having that frame rate counter, and it's ever
Yep.
And there's
you will get obsessed with it, man. Like I've done it. I
I
told
know.
you. That's one of the main reasons I stopped PC gaming, because I couldn't relax. It killed me knowing that some chump up the street was getting 3 more frames than me. So I was on eBay selling my card, and I was on eBay selling my controller, and I was buying new motherboards. I was overclocking. And once I got, okay, now I'm at 250 frames, and I know it ain't nobody higher than me now. Then I see some chump on Reddit, how he was able to squeeze out 270, and I'm tearing it down again, building it, because I get obsessed with that frame rate counter. The reason I would hide it, because it's not doing anything. It is only causing anxiety, or it's making you feel good because you think you like a boss with your rig, but at the end of the day, it's not affecting how the game plays for you. 200 frames versus 198 frames is nothing. But if you get 200 and it dropped to 180, yeah, you're going to start experimenting, exploring what's wrong. You're going to spend more time tinkering and troubleshooting, trying to get that number higher than you are gaming.
Yeah,
and I don't like it.
I need to talk to you about that offline, because I noticed that, and I did something with NVIDIA's GeForce Experience dashboard where you can actually sharpen the image. It actually works. Like I forget what tool it is, but I'll talk to you about that. Big shout out to Delirium Blades, who I've been gaming with Mooch in Warzone with. He's the one that turned me on to the sharpening feature. But I'll talk to you about that offline, because he says it doesn't hit performance, but I'm wondering if maybe that might be the reason for that lower frame rate drop. Anyhow, I got to get to the super chats here real quick. JD Gamer with another $5 super chat. Hey, JD, seriously, man, thank you for the support. Really appreciate it, sir. Says, I need to just say that Microsoft will be able to design and build games in a way that didn't exist before as well, with 40 times the I/O speed of the Xbox One X. Xbox One X.
That is false.
Go ahead.
That is 100% false, because Microsoft has mandated that all of their games have to run on the One X for 2 years. And then after that, they have to run on the Lockhart for the remainder of the generation. So there will never be a point where Microsoft first party will be able to take full advantage of the Series X, because they were always going to have to design around the lower end console, which is it's not even the One X right now, to be the vanilla, the fat, and then after that, the Lockhart. So they're never going to get that unless a Lockhart has the exact same I/O throughput as the Series X. We don't know because it's not been revealed, but the rumors are that it's not. So we will see.
And another $5 super chat for JD Gamer says, speaking of devs, what about all the quality devs moving from Sony to Microsoft first-party studios? Do you guys expect a huge increase in game quality? Code, why don't you answer that, and I'll give you my answer to that question after your answer.
So I do expect a huge increase in. So that word quality is too ambiguous for me. It can mean too many different things for too many people. I will say, if you look at story-driven content in video games, where the story drives the gameplay and you get invested in the characters, I expect to see more of that in Microsoft produced games. 100% I do. If you think that's quality or not is up to you, but I definitely think that there will be very, very, very good, exceptional, even story driven games on Microsoft's platform. But do I think that's quality? I do, but many other people won't. So it's just going to be up to each person to decide. But yes, I think that they are going to bring a new category of gaming to Microsoft first party that wasn't there before, and I'm very excited to see it.
You know what, Code? I 110% agree with you, man. I know what he's saying. Like with the talent coming from Sony, is that gonna be that? I guess he's probably equating that to, are we going to see like maybe Sony? Correct me if I'm wrong here, JD, but I'm interpreting that as, are we going to see the level of quality of first party that we see with Sony now at Microsoft? I think the jury's out still, but I think there's a possibility that could happen.
Yeah.
And I'm excited. Look, I'm excited. I've been very critical.
Yeah.
Let me just say something.
Yes.
Been very critical of Microsoft and their games, and I'll tell you why. And Double M, I don't know if you're in the live chat still, but Double M and I go way back. Xbox OG, right? Xbox Live Beta days. That platform, guys, had no business getting exclusives like Ninja Gaiden, right? That platform had a game that took the world by surprise called Halo, right?
Yeah.
That platform had exclusives from Software. If you remember Otoji.
I don't remember that.
Oh, Otoji was, oh my gosh, man. And by the way, in true from Software, it was not an easy game. it was published by Sega, developed by From Software, and they made two games, Otoji and Otoji 2. Otoji was console exclusive, and I think Otoji 2 was multi-plat. But those are just examples of games on the Xbox. So a lot of my criticism comes from that kind of stuff. Like, there were developers that were actually really taking advantage of the OG Xbox because it was able to do things that the PlayStation 2 couldn't do, right? So they were, to your point, Code, about game design, right? There was games designed exclusively for that console, like Team Ninja, Itagaki was very critical of the PlayStation 2 at the time and was praising the Xbox and the design choices that Microsoft made with hardware with the OG Xbox. And that's why he chose the Xbox and designed Ninja Gaiden around the hardware of the Xbox, right? And at that time, Itagaki was very, very, very critical of the PlayStation 2, which is surprising because he was, he's a Japanese developer.
Yeah, right. And
he put Ninja Gaiden exclusive on the OG Xbox.
I remember that.
And let me tell you, that game was beautiful.
And it was glorious. Yep.
Was it? I mean,
Code. Ninja Gaiden and that Dead or Alive 4, I think it was.
Yeah.
Ooh wee.
Yeah. So that's my criticism comes from just being a fan and just having that experience with Microsoft many years ago, almost 2 decades now, and seeing the quality of titles. I think that's what we all want to see from them. So if I'm critical and overly vocal about them, it's because they've fallen behind the ball in terms of, in my opinion, releasing quality games. The hardware's been there. They nailed that. They nailed that with the Xbox One X.
Yeah.
Now they just got to deliver the goods. Bring home the goods, baby. Right?
And that's the thing. See, I have high confidence that they are. I listen to Phil's press conferences. I mean, you, as a follower of the platform, you keep up with what he says. And in my mind, his message has been consistent. We have learned. The gamers have spoken. We have heard them. We will not lose on power. We will not lose on features. And we will not lose on price. And so far, I mean, he didn't put it that way. I'm paraphrasing, of course. And so far, he's checked them off like clockwork. Check. And I think that they are going to deliver on the goods with the games. I have confidence that they got some aces up their sleeve that hasn't been revealed, so I'm really looking forward to it. Again, they got to show me because they've lost a little bit of the trust from me. Well, a lot of bit of the trust from me, but they do. My mind is open. I'm willing to wait and see what they got. I'm going to invest heavily in the platform again, and I'm really excited about it. I really am.
No doubt,
Just
man.
got to temper it. They got to show me.
Yeah, they have to. I mean, I want to see. Again, my expectation of quality is like I want to see big new AAA bangers, right?
Yeah, you and me both.
Outside of Halo and Gears. Like you got to say something, guys. Like I rode that wave years ago. When
I
those were
still
new
like
games.
Halo Gears. Well, I mean, I talked about this on Crossfire.
Yeah.
I get what you're saying, but I'm not going to invalidate part of their catalog because they're not mutually exclusive. I do want to see new stuff, but I also still want to see Halo Gears and Forza. I do. I like those titles.
Yeah, I like them, but I've have some fatigue with them now.
So I'm gonna ask you the
with
same
Halo
thing
more than Gears. With Halo more than Gears.
I'm gonna ask you the same thing that I asked them on Crossfire.
Yeah.
Have you ever said, "I'm ready to see what Sony's gonna produce outside of Uncharted, The Last of Us, and God of War"? Have you ever said, "I want to see what Nintendo's gonna produce outside of Mario, Zelda, and Pokemon"? Like who does that? When?
Yeah. I actually this generation. Actually, you know what? Not Nintendo. Because Nintendo, with their games, they have each iteration
of Mario.
You
expect that. Like, that's part of the catalog. You want to see the next iteration of the franchise.
But they've also, with Nintendo, is actually interesting because they've also have changed how those games are designed, right? They've added certain things. Like, I haven't, like with with Zelda Breath of the Wild, like that to me was like, wow. Right, that wasn't like any other Zelda that I've experienced. Right,
loved it. Yep.
So Nintendo, yes, even though they put out those reoccurring characters that we all know and love, the games are not really ever similar in some way, in a lot of ways. Right?
Wait, what? Dude, every Pokemon is similar to every other Pokemon. Everybody
that's
is
true. Pokemon, yes, Pokemon's
wait for the next Animal Crossing.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, but I will say this:
Microsoft is the only one that gets that venom. Like, what else you gonna do besides Halo, Gears, and Forza? Why can't we just look to the new stuff without also invalidating those?
I'm not saying those aren't good games. What I'm saying is, I remember the time when they were putting out when those were the newer games, right? When those were the new bangers. I want to see that too, in addition to Halo. Yeah. So I'm not saying get rid of them, but I mean, like with Sony, what do we get this generation with Sony? We got Horizon Zero Dawn, we got a new God of War, but I'm also saying, and I know those franchises are going to be next on PS5, but I'm also curious to see what Sony has working on that's new first party, right?
Like, we agree there.
Yeah, yeah, and I always say because I know the talent of those Sony first party studios, they're talented, right?
So here's what I'm saying, because I think we're in lockstep, except for I think we have a slight variation. I'm looking forward to what they're going to do with new next gen titles, but I am also looking forward to the next gen Halo, the next gen Gears, and the next gen Forza. And it seems like I'll take them or leave them. Just only show me the new stuff.
Yes.
And I'm looking forward to the new Last of Us. Obviously, the new Uncharted. I'm like, I can't wait. The new Spider-Man, like every franchise that exists, I want to see how it's going to be innovated upon, and I also want to see the new stuff. 100%.
Yeah,
I guess that's part of your point. They haven't been innovating enough on these titles.
That's my point. Like it feels like the same, like Halo 5. This is a shinier, more beautiful. Yeah.
All right, my bad.
Yeah. I'm not saying those are bad, and I will never say that. But me as a gamer, man, like we all want those new experiences, those new characters, man. I know it's funny. You're like, don't play Days Gone during the pandemic, but let me tell you something. That was one of my surprise games this generation. I mean, you look at, oh my God, what about Final Fantasy VII, man?
Love it. We
got to talk about that.
Hey, Brad, let me take a couple of questions because a couple of people are asking the same thing. So first, JD Gamer says, he said he wasn't, like, basically he hadn't heard that the Lockhart would not have the same IO as the SSX. So, like when I said that his comment was 100% false, where am I getting that from? That's paraphrasing what he's saying. Like, how do I know they're going to be different? And then Felony 187 says if the Lockhart has the same CPU, will it still hold back the SSX? I want to respond to both of those because they're very similar. So first, I'm only going off of the rumors that I've heard for Lockhart, and I don't know anything about the Lockhart. I don't even know if it is a device that will be named Series S and is code named Lockhart. But what I have been hearing as far as rumors go, that it is half the price. It is a 4 teraflop GPU, and it does not have the same IO throughput. Do I know that that's true? I have no idea because I don't know anything about it. These are all rumors that I'm of. And if the rumors are true, then they won't be able to design around the Series X because they're going to have to design for the lowest common denominator. Also, Felony 187 asked if it has the same CPU, will it still hold it back? And again, so the answer to that is a overwhelming yes. And same thing, going back to the Pancake Chef example, it's not one piece in isolation. It is the entire system working together. And if either one of those pieces is lesser than its counterpart, then it brings the whole system down. Like with your stereo, no matter how much you invest in your stereo, your stereo is only ever as good as its speakers. A chain is only ever as strong as its weakest link. And it doesn't matter if all of the other components are the same. If one or two pieces that contribute to the pipeline are lesser and cannot deliver the same impact that the higher one can, you're going to have to design around the lower one. And it's, again, we're not talking about graphics. We're not talking about graphic scaling. We're talking about game design in the design doc, the prototype that you're building to say, yes, we can build this game on this machine. We're not talking about frame rates, resolution. None of that stuff enters into the conversation at all yet. That stuff happens after the fact. We're only talking about the design. If I want to run complicated AI and I want to pass some of those calculations off to the GPU and help the CPU focus on other things while the GPU is calculating my AI and my physics, if I have a lesser GPU that can't do that, then I have to scale the AI and the physics down until the lesser GPU can. It's that simple. And once I have done that, then I will proceed to building the game based off of these specs. So it will absolutely hold it back unless it's identical in every way. If any piece is lesser, then the whole chain is weaker, and you have to design around the weakest link, period.
That's well said, Code. Well said, man. And that's kind of, I think that's kind of the point you've been driving throughout this podcast too. That it's not just GPU, CPU, it's everything. You know, like you said, it's only
it's the whole thing working together. Yeah.
I think a lot of people forget that. They see the high teraflops and higher CUs or whatever the case is, and that means that it's better or it's going to work better. But they forget that it's the sum of its parts.
Exactly. So Felony asked a follow-up. He's saying, so PS will hold back Xbox. For multiplex, absolutely. Yes. The lower end system, whichever is the lowest system, will hold back multiplex for everybody. 100%. But if the rumors are true, that's going to be Lockhart, not the PS5. The Lockhart is going to hold back the Xbox and the PlayStation. It's going to hold everybody back on multi, and it's going to hold Xbox back from delivering on its own platform because all of the first party titles are going to have to run on that Lockhart. So they're going to have to scale everything. Well, I don't want to say scale because people confuse that with graphics. They're going to have to tone the design down until the design matches the hardware of the lowest system. They can upscale the graphics and all that after the fact, sure. So you'll get the same game. It'll just be prettier on one than on the other. 100%. If the Lockhart didn't exist, yes, the PS5 will bring down the multiplex. PS5 will hold back multiplex from a graphical performance the Series X will hold back multiplats from a data I/O performance because certain types of games they just won't be able to design them because that I/O speed can't be recreated on the Series X. So they'll continue to make the types of games that we have now. Only Sony first party will be able to take full advantage of all of the new strengths of the PlayStation 5. Multiplat games cannot take advantage of that stuff because it doesn't exist on the Xbox. Same thing going the other direction. The Xbox will not be able to be taken full advantage of graphically because you can't get that same thing on the PlayStation. So you have the same game, it'll have maybe ultra settings on the Series X and maybe max settings on the PlayStation 5. But like they will be limited in graphics power. But when the Lockhart comes, it is going to be the lowest of both of them. And every multiplat will be forced to cater to the lowest hardware on the Lockhart. And that's all of the hardware, not just one piece, the whole thing. Xbox, however, they will not even be. So Sony will be able to push their new technology in their first person titles because they will be able to take full advantage of what they have on a PS5. Microsoft will not be able to do that same thing for Xbox because they can't take full advantage of the Series X because they have to make sure it runs on the Lockhart.
Well, unless they drop that bag code.
Standard. Yeah, unless they drop that bag, but Booty done already told you, right? Like he said that they're going to pick one title and they're going to make sure that that one title does all the stuff. And from what the rumors are, again, this is all based on rumors, but the Halo may be late. And I saw one report said they at close to $500 million for developing that game because doing multiple designs like that is not cheap by any stretch. So we'll just have to wait and see. But that's the whole point is whenever you introduce a new lowest common denominator, that's the one that everybody's going to have to code to. Everybody.
And that's the point that people have been arguing with you to this day. Just don't get it, man.
Why is it so hard?
What you just said makes and I've never made a game in my life. What you just said makes perfect sense. I don't understand. I think people are just conflating, like you said, the graphics, and it's something looking prettier, right?
Exactly.
With design, I think that happens a lot.
Yeah, you can scale the graphics way up. Like a game on the Series X will look better. No one's disputing it. I'm not disputing it. Again, based on dev skill and talent. Let's just assume that all things are equal dev-wise, and we only looking at the hardware. Yes, the game should scale up and look a ton better. 100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But it won't be designed any differently. It'll be the same last-gen design, just with prettier graphics.
Yeah, which is why I understood your tweet when you addressed the Lockhart rumors. You're like, hey, I don't want this.
I don't. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
So, gonna go grab the $5 super chat here from JD Gamer. JD, thank you so much for the super chats, bro. Really appreciate you coming through and dropping some color in the live chat. So thank you very much, man. Really appreciate it. JD says the genius in game design, what makes an average developer great is how they overcome the limits of hardware. That's what makes God of War so impressive.
Definitely agree with that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, on that note, Code, we're going to go ahead and wrap up. It's a little bit after 1 o'clock. Everyone, thank you so much, and coming by to hang out with myself and Code as we talk tech and the specs of these new consoles. I think we all agree at the end of the day, these are very impressive pieces of hardware, and we're all very excited to see what games are going to be running on these consoles later in the year and going into the future. So thank you, everyone. Hit that like button if you haven't done so already. And if you're new to the show, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you know when we go live. And Code, man, we got to do this again, man. As we start learning more information about the hardware and start seeing some games, man, we got to do this again, man. This was a lot of fun.
Yep. Anytime, yeah, you go check out Iron Lords, man.
Yeah, I was just about to say that the Iron Lords are live right now. So everyone, please head out over to the ILP, the Iron Lords podcast. Check those guys out. They're live right now. Give them some love, support. And we will see you guys next Wednesday again for our regular scheduled BRAP at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. By the way, guys, we are working on some special guests. We're working on working on bringing on a guest from Digital Foundry.
Awesome.
So hope to have that announcement here soon. Have been having that conversations behind the scenes with this one individual from Digital Foundry who's agreed to come on BRAP. We just got to nail down the time. He's in a different continent. He's in Europe, so we're trying to figure out the logistics there, the timing, and then Code. I know you reached out to your buddy who I think's NVIDIA.
Yeah, we're gonna get him on.
Yeah,
we're gonna get him on. Yeah.
So and then working on some other guests as well. So just kind of keep an eye out for those announcements. So thank you again, everyone. We'll see you guys on Wednesday, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. On that note, we are out. Peace.
Peace.